Hello and welcome to this, the third quarterfinals here at the World Magic Cup. I'm Tim Willoughby, joined by Matej Zadelkai, and, well, Rich and the team, they weren't wrong. This is an absolutely titanic matchup we see in our top 8 here in Nice, France. Let's head down to the feature match area as we get a chance to check out Japan versus Austria. Hello and welcome to this, our third quarterfinal here at the World Magic Cup, and we have two of the highest ranked teams that you are likely to see in this or any team competition. Team Japan, just a whole host of talent, two Hall of Famers, Shota Yasuoka, Yuya Watanabe and Kenta Harane on that team. They are up against Team Austria, led by Oliver Polak-Rockman, Elias Klocker and Adrian Johann Schrenk on that team. Both of these teams, a huge amount of experience. We're going to get a chance to see some top-level magic here, Matej Zadelkai.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just honored to be in the booth, and I get to watch Shota Yasuoka and Yuya Watanabe play. And I mean, basically in the first row, it's amazing. And getting to see Japan finally do well at the World Magic Cup is a delight.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because Japan, in spite of all of their successes at various levels in Magic, for whatever reason, they've never quite been able to put it together here at the World Magic Cup. This top 8, a big step for them, and ultimately, I'm sure that they're ready to convert. And we're getting a chance to see one of my favorite Magic players to watch, Shota Yasuoka, in this first game. He's on Ramanap Red. That's an unusual deck choice for him. Obviously, team deck construction rules are applying, so Team Japan knew that they were going to have someone on this aggressive deck. And while Shota, normally known as a control player, he's showing that he's got a few moves in with just about every deck in the format as he's up against 4-color control here. Elias Klocker starting off with an Attune with Ether. Now, Matej, looking at these two different decks, how would you say that this matchup's likely to go?
I think Shota is a little bit favored because Elias is running a 4-color control version where the mana is not all that great, even though he did start with Botanical Sanctum into Attune with Ether, which really helps. But Shota also had a big advantage of being able to play first because Japan was the 3rd seed, so in all their matches they can choose play or draw, and of course the red deck is going to choose play.
Yeah, and pretty much every deck in this format looking to play where possible, and a big deal doing better in the Swiss, getting into this top 8 earlier on, winning their matches earlier, meaning that Team Japan able to get that play across all 3 matches going on here in this quarterfinal. Glint Sleeve Siphoner coming down for Elias Klocker. It's an interesting one, this one. It can, of course, generate card advantage if it can stay in play. Shota Yasuoka saying a shock is going to end that plan. But it does also cost life for Elias Klocker. If it had stayed in play, it might have been painful. I think this might be even more painful, though, as Arncrop Crusher coming in, meaning that Klocker very much on a clock here.
Oh, very nice. And yeah, that just shows you the power of the red deck on the play. Shota had a lot of options. He could have just shocked on his own turn, but he just wanted to clear the path for the Crasher and leave that exert maybe for the next turn when Elias is very likely to play maybe something like a Rogue Refiner. Verla Virtuoso would be still quite good here if he has the mana for it.
One thing worth noting, though, Shota Yasuoka, normally known for playing Guru basic lands. Here in this top 8, as with all of our top 8 players, he has lands from the new Unhinged set. Will this be Samson losing his hair and Shota losing his style points here? We'll find out soon enough. For a Rogue Refiner coming down for Elias Klocker, generating a little bit more energy, drawing him a card.
Yeah, Lightning Strike takes down the Refiner. Still no exert on Arncrop Crusher. Shota doesn't need it at all so far. And Klocker down to 11. It's looking very good for the Red Mage on the left.
I think it should possibly even be 10 because there was a prowess trigger from that Soulscar Mage. We'll just double check to see whether or not there was an issue on the life totals there. Ether Hub coming down for Elias Klocker here.
Yeah, and Shota also, I think he's sandbagging Hazoret there. So he's already getting very close, and I think Elias will now have to play the Verla Virtuoso to stem the bleeding at least a little bit.
Yeah, Verla Virtuoso, with that amount of energy, will mean that there's going to be a large amount of Thopters potentially coming down. Just that one unstable swamp in play, untapped for Elias Klocker, so potentially threatening the likes of a Fatal Push, though these players do now have full deck lists, so they can play around things appropriately.
And checking the energy count there as Shota is playing the hazard that I talked about on the previous turn. And now we're going to see an exert on the uncrop crash. So those 1/1 tops, they're probably just going to be mere chump blockers, as we like to say.
Yeah, tough old spot here. And I think that Elias Clocker may be falling into the trap of something that Shota Yasuoka, I think, does fairly often. Because he plays so quickly, it can kind of generate this pace of play that means that opponents try and keep up. And ultimately, Shota plays like this all day, every day, which means that for those that are sort of adjusting their pace of play to try and match him, potentially means a few more mistakes from them.
It's a very big psychological advantage, and I've played against Shota, and this same thing happens when you play against Shohei Nakamura. It's very much a thing that can happen at the top tables, and here especially in this matchup, because I saw Elias Clocker play over the long weekend, and he's a very deliberate player. He's trying to figure out the best path to victory in his own pace. And the speed of Shota will surely have an effect on him.
Big swings coming here from Shota Yasuoka. And as you said, Matej, simply just having to jump in away with the creatures that he could. Clocker now down to 9 as Soulscar Mage, the only creature to connect. But now Clocker with just 2 energy left to work with. A very, very tough spot for him. He's going to have to find something big if he's going to pull back into this game, because if Shota had to draw up how he wanted this game 1 to go for Ramanap Red, it would essentially have been this.
Yeah, and while Elias is still on 9 and the ground is going to look somewhat stable or stable-ish once he plays the Rogue Refiner here, and I think he's going to follow that up with at least the Glintsleeve Safer. Maybe he'll find something better off the Refiner. But the thing for Shota is, though, that every single card that is going to come off his deck, it's basically damage because of Hazoret. Every land is good too, because he already has double ramming up ruins as well, so he can just keep the pain train rolling.
Well, Glintsleeve Siphoner plus Rogue Refiner, that's a lot of energy, and it does now mean 2 more Thopters in the tank for that Whirler Virtuoso. So blockers a little bit easier, but as you said, there's so many options for the red deck now to push through damage in a variety of ways. Ramanap Ruins means that lands are great draws. Hazoret means that basically every spell at worst is a 3-mana shock, admittedly only to Elias Clocker's head here. But one way or another, Shota Yasuoka, he's got ways of closing this game out, and on the other side of things for this 4-color control deck, it's not quite as clear how it's going to move into a late game here.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, we do see that there are some answers for Elias Clocker. In his hand, there is a Glimmer of Genius and a Rascal's Contempt. So he has the answer to the Hazoret, but he just wanted to establish a board for as long as the Uncrop Crasher was exerted. But Shota has another one, and he might be thinking that if he wants to push through for damage this turn, it might not really go as he hoped, but maybe the following one with double Uncrop Crasher is something that he would be looking forward to, as like, okay, I can make 2 creatures now be able to block and maybe try to get in for the final points of damage.
Yeah, even in the face of a Whirler Virtuoso creating Thopter tokens, 2 Uncrop Crashers does make blocking a very problematic affair. And the last card in Shota Yasuoka's hand forces the issue. That's an Abrade on Whirler Virtuoso. So if Elias Clocker is going to use that energy to make Thopters, he's going to have to do so right now.
Yeah, and spending energy on Thopters, if Elias goes for 2 Thopters, he's going to run out of energy whatsoever. And he with double Ether Hub and potentially some double color cards in his hand, it's going to be trouble for his mana. So this might be really good for Shota Yasuoka. And remember, the Abrade also gives the Soulscar Mage an extra +1/+1 this turn.
Prowess has triggered. And the first Thopter, that was the easy decision. The second one, as you've mentioned, Matej, is a little bit trickier because really does need that black mana in order to be able to cast Vraska's Contempt, deal with Hazoret at least. And that means that spending the second set of 3 energy here, a less enticing proposition. Now, Shota, do you think that he will have picked up on the fact that Elias might be saving mana for Ether Hub here?
Yeah, he might think about it in this spot, but I think Shota, now that has resolved and there's only 1 Thopter, Shota swing with everything. And he's hoping that, okay, I'll exert this turn with my Crasher. There surely will be some trades. with the creatures. The Crasher is a great as a 3/2 haster, but at least it's one of the best uses for Elias's Glintleaf Siphoner here, just because as a 2/1 for 2 is not the best stats, and you don't really want to be paying energy to draw cards in this matchup, because you can be on the clock very fast with Hazoret and Raminap Ruins looming.
So Shota there electing to make it so the Thopter was the creature that couldn't block with Uncrop Crasher. Now that does mean that his Uncrop Crasher, I mean, I guess it was always going to be a losing fight there with something in this combat step, but also getting through a little bit of damage with that Soulscar Mage again. Clocker now on just 7 life. Picks up another Whirler Virtuoso.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing for Clocker is the what we talked about with the mana, with double Ether Hub, and he had to use it to already cast one of the Whirler Virtuosos, because he doesn't have a different source of red mana. So that's kind of costing him a little bit of energy. And ultimately, in this deck, energy means some advantages like Thopters, like cards with Glintleaf Siphon and so on. So everyone that you pay for mana, it kind of gets lost for that particular use.
Botanical Sanctum coming into play tapped here. 4 color control, just a little bit trickier on the mana than 3, and Elias Clocker very much feeling that, having to use one of his energy to create black mana for Vraska's Contempt. I think we'll all agree that that's worth it to deal with Hazoret there, but at the same time, that's basically the entire turn for Elias Clocker here, and he just has to live with the fact that Shota Yasuoka has a couple of creatures that are very likely to hit the red zone, whatever he's drawn, plus everything that's going on with the creatures he has in play and the deserts that he has to work with.
Yeah, and the problem for Elias that he only has a 1/1 blocker, and it just matches really poorly against the creatures of Shota, who he didn't go for the Exert in the end, but he didn't even have to protect these creatures. But this way, he puts Elias down to 5. And as we talked about, almost any spell is good at this point, and Lance can also help with the Raminap Ruins.
Yeah, it's entirely possible that we'll see an end-of-turn activation of Raminap Ruins and then potentially another Raminap Ruins on the untap. So Elias Clocker on a virtual 1 life to these copies of Raminap Ruins, and the 2 life that he gained from Vraska's Contempt. In the face of that, very important indeed.
Oh, but Elias Clocker can start digging here. Goes with the Virtuoso first. Still has Glimmer of Genius up, so at least he has those blockers. But Shota definitely looking at his burn spells now to finish off the game. We'll see if he finds it. Lightning Strike, definitely one of the best draws he can have.
Yeah, 4 energy, a happy amount for Elias Clocker, especially given that he knows that he can gain 2 more energy with that Glimmer of Genius that he has sat in hand.
Yeah, but he's still very, very defensive here. And look at that. Shota's not messing around here. Sunscorched Desert would be the best draw for Shota Yasuoka. That would finish off the game right away. And,
I mean, any land off the top is not too shabby here.
Yeah.
We'll find out soon enough what it is that Shota's working with. Keeping his cards relatively close to his chest here. Does not try and mask which one was in his hand before. He'd been holding a mountain for a little bit of time. That means that second copy of Raminap Ruins is active here.
It's actually Bomat Courier. And here comes an interesting spot where Shota could actually try to get a card out of the Bomat Courier, even though it's obvious it's going to be blocked by a Whirl Virtuoso. But Shota could have decided to wait for a turn and try to get in a big attack with the Crasher and the Bomat Courier. But I think Shota's just going to cash the Bomat Courier right away and maybe find something.
And if it's a Lightning Strike, this game's all over.
No Lightning Strike just yet. Maybe now? No, still no. So at least we know it wasn't Lightning Strike. I think he drew a Shock, though. And that means that Elias has to find an answer real quick. And I mean, he has plenty of energy for blockers now, but the problem is his life total. He needs a Vraska's Contempt or maybe a Torrential Gearhulk to play the one from his graveyard.
That would certainly be a nice pickup. Also, of course, creating a gigantic blocker for whatever it is that Shota Yasuoka is sending into the red zone. And coming along right on time such that Uncrop Crasher will not be able to make it unable to block.
Yeah, so Shota Yasuoka is very close to winning here. If he can get that Shock off and those Raminap Ruins activation, he's got this one in the bag.
Couple of updates for you from our other tables. On our middle table, it is Austria that has picked up the first game. That being Shota Yasuoka dropping his... Yu Watanabe dropping his first game on the middle table, and then on the back table, Harane picking up the first game over Oliver Polak-Rotman. So we have currently even Stevens on game wins. Of course, match wins the important thing here in this team competition. The first team to pick up 2 match wins in this series will be advancing through to the semi-finals here at the World Magic Cup in Nice, France.
Yeah, and Shota is playing close to chest. He didn't pull the trigger on the shock right away, and now he also has an Earthshaker Kenra in hand that he declined to use against all that untapped mana from Elias Clocker, who's now going to start using his removal spells on Shota's board and maybe try to claw his way back into the game, even at such a low life total. But we know that Shota has the win when he's ready to go.
And I guess that if you're in Shota's position here, you start thinking like the control player and you say, all right, what is it going to mean if the 2 damage I have on the table and the 2 damage in my hand is somehow not good enough? How does that happen and what can I do to mitigate against that? So it may be that we see Shota here waiting for a key moment where Elias taps down low if he's concerned about counter magic, or alternatively, just a matter of building up enough threats in hand that he's able to deploy lots of burn at the same time, because right now his life total comparatively safe.
Yep. And still, there is quite a bit of energy reserve for Elias there, so you can always create another Thopter on a whim. And let's see if Shota goes for it here. With the hand he has, Earthshaker Kenra in shock. Elias on 3, and I also see a Remnant Ruin still active. He's setting up for the 1 mana. Goes for the big sacrifice on the Raminab Ruins. Elias Clocker down to 1.
All right. This is the moment. Shota Yasuoka draws for his turn. Shuffles his hand up a little bit. This way around, at least Elias Clocker won't know whether or not it was the burn spell that came first. And before we see the shock, first a mountain being played. Here is Earthshaker Kenra.
Yeah, so this kind of forces the issue, because Shura's thinking, okay, if I play my Kenra here, then Elias is forced to answer it with either with removal or a counter spell. We see both in Clocker's hand. But now, after Elias goes and plays something, Shota will finish the game off with shock, even though Vraska's Contempt is still a potential threat here. And Shota doesn't know it.
Well, at least now he knows that, for example, Torrential Gear Hulk is no longer an answer.
Yeah, and Shota playing slow here. What's going on? Normally, Shota would have fired off that shock, wouldn't he?
Believe that the life totals are now 20-1 after that activation of Ramanat Ruins.
Yeah, they haven't been updated yet. We're checking life totals.
These damage counts, of course, very important indeed in the ultimate architecture of this game.
Yeah, and just we're wondering why if we talk about Shota having shock in his hand, why didn't he cast it? Well, of course, there's always the Vraska's Contempt that he's kind of playing around, because if he plays the shock here, and he does, and Elias Clock, if he has the Vraska's Contempt, it's over, but it's over for Shota.
Shota picking up the game win there. That meaning that right now, Japan 2 game ones ahead. Just the 1 game 1 win thus far for Team Austria. That coming in at the middle table, where we have Yuya Watanabe playing Adrian Johann Schrenk. Schrenk picking up the game 1 with Blue-White Gift over 4-color Energy, but Ramanap Red in the hand of Shota Yasuoka, Blue-White Gift in the hand of Kenta Harane on the back table, both enough to win their game 1s. We'll have plenty more from this match. Japan versus Austria, the quarterfinals here at the World Magic Cup, right after these messages.
Looking for a place to hang out and play Magic? Head to your local game store this and every Friday to play Friday Night Magic events. Get more info at magic.wizards.com/FNM. Want to play in the next Pro Tour? Qualifiers are happening this weekend on Magic Online. For more information, visit mtgo.com.
Hello and welcome back to the third quarterfinal here at the World Magic Cup in Nice, France. I'm Tim Willoughby, joined by Matej Zadelkai, and we're going to get a chance to see some post-sideboard games between Team Japan and Team Austria. We're jumping across to see early stages of Game 2 between Yuya Watanabe and Adrian Johann Schrenk of Austria. Schrenk picking up the first game with his blue-white Godpharaoh's Gift deck, and it looks like for Game 2 he's got a large amount of the pieces in place that he needs if he does want to get that early Godpharaoh's Gift going. There's already a Godpharaoh's Gift in the graveyard. There's already an Angel of Invention for the Godpharaoh's Gift to return from that graveyard. Just looking for the fourth land and a refurbish in order to potentially take down one of the best players of all time in two relatively straightforward games.
Yeah, and actually, Adrian Johann Schrenk actually has both the land and double refurbish, so he's definitely at the ready. And but Yuya is also ready on his own. He has a negate up, so we'll see how this plays out because we've rarely seen the white-blue gift deck just win based off of a turn 4 refurbish, even though it is quite common to happen in game ones here. After sideboard, the 4-color energy deck has a lot more different answers at its disposal.
Now, one of the difficult things when it comes to Team Unified Constructed is that cards like Negate, a really key sideboard card for almost any deck that's running blue, they can be a little bit stretched between various deck lists. Obviously only allowed to have each named card that's not a basic land in only the one deck per team. And so Negate, one of the cards that gets fought over. Worth noting that in this case, Yuya Watanabe did win that fight. He is the player that gets to have Negate. And now that we're in the top 8, all of these players working with deck lists, so they've got a much better idea of what they need to think about playing around here in the elimination stages in Nice.
Yeah, and for me it was fun talking to both teams because they both felt confident about this. Well, we'll see how confident Adrian Schrenk feels about this, but he does go for the refurbish on turn 4, and Yuya will definitely have to negate here because that would have been over quite quickly, I think, with all the pieces in the graveyard for Adrian Schrenk, as you mentioned.
Now, that's the first negate blustered through. The cool thing that the blue-white gift deck can do is it can attempt to just essentially run its opponent out of counter magic because those negates, firstly, obviously they need to be hitting these refurbishes when they come along, but at some point the blue-white gift deck can just think about getting 7 lands in play and trying to simply cast a Godpharaoh's Gift. It seems like a lot of mana. It is a lot of mana, but these games tend to go fairly long, so there's definitely potential to take that path if the most straightforward way of getting Godpharaoh's Gift into play doesn't seem realistic.
Yeah, you had an interesting choice. You could have gone really big with a Vraska Relic Seeker because he does have 6 mana thanks to that Servant of the Conduit. Actually goes for a Chandra, deals 2, and then gets to represent the gate again for the potential of other refurbish coming from Adrian Schrenk.
Yeah, that Servant of the Conduit, a big acceleration point for Yuya Watanabe, also meaning that his 4-color energy list has that much more consistent mana, even though Ether Hub, the only source of black that he has in terms of lands, Servant of the Conduit doing a fair Ether Hub impression also.
Yeah, and big decision for Schrenk and the Austrians. Does he pull the trigger on another refurbish? Is Yuya Watanabe just bluffing the negate? Does he really have it? Oh, he'll see soon enough if he does go for it. Does have some other options as well in his hand. He does have a Charter Course, and he can slowly build up his mana towards a hardcast Godpharaoh's Gift if he wants to. But I think it looks like he's going to go for the second refurbish here.
I like this. This is your A plan. This is how you win the game a fair proportion of the time. Immediately we see there is another negate there from Yuya Watanabe. Absolutely gigantic plays from the Japanese superstar in the early stages of this game too. And that does put back Adrian Johann Schrenk's plan quite a bit here. Yes, he gets to attack in, and he really doesn't mind too much if there is a block here with that Rogue Refiner on Champion of Wits, because Champion of Wits in the graveyard is another creature that is both good to reanimate and potentially good to just bring back with Eternalize. Once you get up to 7 mana, this deck actually has a surprising amount of options available to it, in spite of being a deck that only has Godpharaoh's Gift itself as a natural 7-drop.
Yeah, we're not going to enter a bit of a different phase of this game where the Chandra emblem potentially a very big problem for the Adrian Schrenk if he just doesn't find an answer for it, because when the white blue gift deck has the pressure, then 4-color energy is just scrambling from behind, and Chandra usually cannot help that much. And you guys actually using the Chandra for a plus for mana, and also gets gets the Vraska Relic Seeker to the board.
Vraska Relic Seeker, one of the ways that Watanabe can take down a God-Pharaoh's Gift once it's in play. That second ability, destroying target artifact, creature, or enchantment, and creating a colorless treasure in return. Obviously, that's only at sorcery speed, so it does mean that if a God-Pharaoh's Gift came into play, there'd be at least one trigger out of it. But now, when it comes to if Shrenk can get such a thing into play, he's got a lot of different targets he needs to consider attacking here. Chandra's a problem, Vraska's a problem, and of course, letting Yuya Watanabe just swan around with 20 life, that could be a problem too.
Yeah, and not that much happening in for Adrian Shrenk. Having already used those two refurbishes early and getting them countered is a huge problem for his deck, especially in the way it is set up, having been on the draw in this game.
Yeah, it's interesting. Looking at the opening hands, certainly at the point that Yuya Watanabe used his first negate, at that point he had to draw into the second negate right on time. He did so. Initially, it was looking like everything was coming up Shrenk, but the key pieces of counter magic here, enough to mean that now Yuya Watanabe in commanding position with a couple of Planeswalkers on his side. The loyalty is high with this one. And Yuya Watanabe, at this point, it's just a matter of trying to make sure that the wheels don't come off and we don't somehow see Shrenk finding a window of opportunity to get back in this game.
Yeah, that might have looked like a very strange attack with a 1-2 into a 3-2 and a pirate. But it was just Adrian trying to get the Charter Course to be even better by drawing two cards without having to discard, even though this deck usually wants to discard a card as well. But he was just digging for an answer, and he actually finds a cast out. He has to deal with the Vraska now, so that means the Chandra is still on the board. It's going to get up to 7 this turn.
Yeah, this is a scary time. We've not seen a Chandra Ultimate at any point in this tournament in the feature match area, but when it happens, it's a big deal. -7 to get an emblem that means that whenever you cast a spell, this emblem deals 5 damage to target creature or player, and typically a lot of that just goes to the head because it doesn't tend to take too long to just kill off opponents.
Speaking of going to head, do you know what just Yuya drew? A Nissa, Steward of Elements, with quite a few lands, so we might see a Nissa animating some lands and going face as well here. Yuya Watanabe with the 4-color Super Friends. We should just change the deck name here.
I love it. After sideboarding against these control decks, just overloading their ability to counter your big key threats, because every single one of these Planeswalkers a real problem for control. You just have so many more options each and every turn, so many sources of card advantage. And yeah, that -6 ability, once you get up to 8 mana, you can simply cast Nissa, use her -6, untap 2 of the lands that you used to cast her, immediately make them into 5/5 flyers, and treat her as the blue-green fireball.
Yeah, the one problem for Yuya in this case, he might be happy about getting to cast a big Nissa. The thing is, he has a land in his hand to potentially get off the ultimate, as we like to call it, but his land is tapped, so he cannot go for the fireball win here, which would actually give him lethal right away. So he just has to play the Nissa for a little bit fewer. And once he tapped out, if Adrian Shrenk has an untapped land, he will actually have access to the God-Pharaoh's Gift in his hand.
The big question now is, though, is that God-Pharaoh's Gift going to be good enough? Adrian Shrenk on 8 life and a couple of Planeswalkers in play, each of whom individually are kind of scary. So 9 life there, sorry, just a quick update. And it basically, Chandra's ultimate ability means that any 2 spells kills Adrian Johann Shrenk.
Yeah, but bringing back a 6/6 Flying Vigilant Lifelinker can deal with the Chandra, at least put it down to 1. He'd alternatively attack the Nissa, even though that's quite dangerous because then the Chandra ultimate could go off. But does Adrian Shrenk have the 7th land here? He doesn't look that way. He's lining up 2 mana. Oh, I think he drew another Charter Course.
Oh, this is a rough one for Adrian Johann Shrenk. There's still a possibility that in these 2 cards he could draw a Refurbish, though. Get a God-Pharaoh's Gift into play that way. If not, we may find ourselves going on to a game 3 here between Yuya Watanabe and Shrenk. Blue-White Gift taking things down relatively straightforwardly in game 1. Kind of unusual to see the mono-red deck of Shota Yasuoka being the slowest one to pick up a game 1, but this is the world that we live in, and as things stand, Shrenk having to scoop up his cards in the face of all of these Planeswalkers. Yuya Watanabe squaring things up. We will be seeing a game 3 from these 2.
Wow, and what a game. It was very tense in the end. It might not have looked that way, but a lot of small decisions could have significantly changed the outcome of this game. And I'm just happy we get to see more of Yuya eventually because, he's a great player and navigated that really well.
You can see big smiles there on the face of Schrenk, even in the face of what was ultimately not much of a game for him, still having a fantastic time. And I think that that's one of the cool things about the World Magic Cup in general, is that the level of team spirit and camaraderie that you see at this event, quite unlike any other, because these teams, obviously 3 players working together for a common goal, but it's not just a common goal for the people playing. They know that there's people watching at home who are just as excited as they are about the potential to see their country doing well in this tournament. And so there's a real sense of pride amongst all of these players as they try and do the best for their countries back home. Now we get a chance to see some more of Shota Yasuoka here against Elias Klocker. The early glint sleeve siphoner again being killed off by Shota, this time by an abrade on turn 2. And right now, it's very much on Klocker to try and find a way of getting back in this. Japan already leading 1-0. Japan on table C already picking up their match. That means that we're not getting a chance to see any of Kenta Harane this round because 2 games straight, blue-white taking it down against the Ramanap red deck. Great victory for him. Harana just quietly winning matches left, right, and center all weekend. And bizarrely, as if they needed it, taking a little bit of the pressure off the 2 Hall of Famers that he sat next to on the Japanese team.
Yeah, it's very funny because I talked to Oliver Polak-Rotman, who was playing the Raminab red deck in that particular matchup, and he was saying that he feels very favored against the blue-white gift deck, that he should win it comfortably. And now seeing him lose 2-0 must hurt quite a bit, and at least he'll get to help out Elias Klocker, but it's a game and match and point for Japan here. They can win either this game or then Yuya Watanabe in the middle.
Yeah, we do see Pia Nalar getting taken down by an Essence Scatter. She does not get to bring a Thopter to this party. Meanwhile, that does not mean to say that there will not be any Thopters going on. 3 basic lands they're being tapped, the unstable basics that we have in our feature match area. And that means we have a World of Virtuoso, 6 energy to work with, so we will be seeing some Thopters, I would estimate. Yeah,
Shota with quite a slow draw. He elected to kill the Glensleeve Siphon on turn 2 rather than playing something like an Earthshaker Kenra or a Karizev that he had. And this just slowed down his development, and now it's going to be that much harder to fight through a World of Virtuoso who was decent stat. But on the other hand, Elias Klocker is down in cards significantly. Only has a land and an Essence Scatter to work with. So those Thopters will have to work overtime here.
Well, you know what? That's what their cold metal hearts are all about. You give them a bit of energy and they will fly for you away to victory. 2 of them in the air now that will be able to start attacking Shota Yasuoka. The luxurious position of being able to get those attacks in early, not having to worry about so many attackers just yet. Karizev on her own. Not too threatening by the looks of things for Klocker here.
Yeah, Klocker has at least the mana well set up. So even though we see that in his hand it's just a basic line and an Essence Scatter, Shota Yasuoka of course doesn't know that himself, and he has to respect cards like Glimmer of Genius, potentially getting more card advantage, or even something like Vraska's Contempt.
Well, here's a braid from Shota Yasuoka, an important card for him dealing with the Whirl of Virtuoso, meaning that any future energy generated by Elias Klocker is not going to turn into Thopters unless he can find another copy of that key uncommon.
Yeah, and that's why he was playing it the way he was playing it, just getting maybe a little bit slower start, but with the removal to take care of the creatures of Elias. Now, what a big swing from the Japanese.
2 copies of Earthshaker Kenra. Those have haste. They were going to be able to stop blocking anyway. Not that there was much blocking to be done by Team Austria. On top of that, Karizev coming in along with Ragavan the Monkey, and that meaning that all of a sudden, Elias Klocker's life total, potentially an unlucky 13 here.
Yeah, but also another big problem for Elias is the fact that Shota is already up to 5 lands, and with 2 Earthshaker Kenras in play, that's going to be quite a pain to deal with. Even though Elias did draw Vraska's Contempt, but he might have wanted to play it on the Karizev, because that's the one that he has trouble blocking. He can at least for a few turns block those Earthshaker Kenras, but he doesn't want them to come back. So between a rock and a hard place here for Elias Klocker.
Yeah, Shota Yasuoka's red deck, Ramanap Red, does have lots of things it can do once it hits a lot of mana. You can see Ramanap Ruins already in play. That's one option when he has lots of lands in order to turn them into damage. But Earthshaker Kenra itself does a great job of just providing late game damage that's tricky to deal with, thanks to being able to bring back those Kenras from the graveyard for the bargain basement price of 6 mana.
Now let's see what else Shota Yasuoka is working here with. Yeah, it definitely has options here.
Well,
just a bunch of lands, though.
It's weird. We're talking about both of these teams facing off with lots of lands in play. Vraska's Contempt, a big play for Elias Clocker, giving him a little bit of life back, and meaning that we're going to see lots of blocks here. But Shota Yasuoka didn't play his 6th land until after combat, that meaning that he was able to disguise at least a little bit that there could be another Earthshaker Kenra. And interesting to see the first Earthshaker Kenra getting brought back immediately rather than later.
Yeah, and what an exciting thing for Japan here, because he can Earthshaker Kenra 1 now has a Sunscorched Desert as 7 land. That means that another one can come in, and Shota doesn't even know how comfortable he is right now, because Elias Clocker is just sitting on an Essence Scatter, and that won't deal with the Eternalize ability of the Kenras. Oh, just a pass though. Scared of Torrential Gearhulk? Man, Shota showing mad respect to Elias Clocker.
I mean, Shota Yasuoka has probably cast more copies of Torrential Gearhulk than just about anyone in the building. He's very aware of what 6 mana means for a 4-color control deck. This is a disciplined lack of attacking, but you know what? It may be that it ends up costing him if he gives a longer period of time for Elias Clocker to draw into the cards that currently he does not have in hand.
Yeah, but Shota must be thinking, well, he didn't play the Torrential Gearhulk the previous turn. Would he be slow rolling me in this way and going for it now? And he tries first with a Bowmat Courier.
Now, the interesting thing about he's holding this Bowmat Courier on the stack. If it works out that Elias Clocker does use his Essence Scatter on the Bowmat Courier, that taps him down to 5 lands untapped, meaning that any representation of a Torrential Gearhulk completely goes away.
Yeah, but now Bowmat Courier resolves, and Elias Clocker is still sitting on a bunch of mana, and Shota Yasuoka still respecting that Torrential Gearhulk. Elias Clocker trying to do his best to represent that he does indeed have it, even though we know he doesn't.
Now, the cool thing is here that at some point, this Bowmat Courier attacking, triggering, putting more cards underneath it, it threatens so many cards that Shota Yasuoka has to sniff out that there is not going to be a big Gearhulk blocker here.
Does he do it now? No, still just another land. It is a cycling land, though, and with Elias Clocker working his way up to 8 mana, he could potentially also cycle to dig for the Gearhulk if he wants to. But Shota is sitting pretty here, not exposing his Earthshaker Kenras to a Torrential Gearhulk attack, and also he has those Raminab Ruins. Look at how many desert he has. He can just start chucking lands at Elias Clocker.
Yeah, a huge amount of deserts in play for Shota Yasuoka. He has a virtual 10 damage just in terms of deserts on the battlefield here. Obviously, that'll take a little bit of time, but at the moment, time is something that Shota Yasuoka has. He's drawn another land, does not mind putting it into play, and here we see him lining up a lot of lands. Is this going to be the second Earthshaker Kenra?
Yeah, it is. But now that's part of Shota's master plan. Now that he made it up to that many lands, that's why he wasn't sacrificing, because he wants to eternalize the Earthshaker Kenra with Scavenger Grounds backup. That means that if Elias Clocker indeed would go for the Torrential Gearhulk, he could exile all graveyards in response and at least deny that little bit of card advantage for the Austrian.
This is a set of lines that I do not think you would see very many players taking in this matchup, and it's really interesting to me that ultimately this is Shota Yasuoka playing around the few ways that he sees himself losing this matchup rather than simply going for the fastest win. He wants the most decisive win.
Yeah, and now also he swings with the Bowmat Courier. If there would be a Torrential Gearhulk here and Shota goes for the Scavenger Grounds exile, he'd be still in decent shape. And now it has to be obvious to Shota Yasuoka that Elias Clocker doesn't have a Gearhulk. And he also thinks like, yeah, it wouldn't matter as much now because he would still get in for 5 here as he does here because Elias does play a Harness Lightning. Oh, they did forget a card on the Bowmat Courier though. So we're going to have, okay, that's going to still resolve though. I know. Elias Clocker down to 7, and when I count out the damage among Shota's lands, I get up to very high numbers.
Yeah, we have a lot of deserts in play for Shota Yasuoka. He's not going to be activating multiple Raminap Ruins in a turn just yet, but it's actually not that far off. He has 8 lands in play here. It's going to cost him 5 mana to throw a desert with Ramanap Ruins. And with 7 damage left to deal, he is representing lethal here. And this is a big turn for Elias Clocker to find a way of potentially gaining a little life here, but for a scavenging grounds on Shota Yasuoka's side of the battlefield.
Yeah, and Elias Clocker is just going for the Deathcore Scavenger, trying to gain some life, but Shota's having none of it. He sacrifices a Sunscorched Desert to the Scavenger Grounds, exiles or graveyards to deny that, and now we might actually be very close to seeing Shota Yasuoka win here. He has a Pia.
Now, I like this playing it pre-combat. That means that he can sacrifice an artifact to make it so that Pia can't block, or alternatively, pump one of his tokens. Ultimately, draws the Excellent Scatter, though. Big swings here. 3 cards now under Bomat Courier.
Yeah, but Elias Clocker is forced to block the Earthshaker Cannon, because if he doesn't, he'd be in very much trouble. He could still go for the block on Bomat Courier. That would put him at a virtual 1 life. Yeah, and you
I
can
don't
see
like the look of 1 life in the face of this many Ramanap Ruins, Mate.
Yeah, and I mean, Elias now getting the help from his captain, Oliver Polak-Rotman, who's explaining about what they have to do here. And it looks like they are going to go for the block on the Courier. But remember, the Courier can also get sacrificed for 3 fresh cards now, which is going to be a world of trouble for the Austrians. Is there maybe even Lightning Strike to finish it off right away?
It doesn't feel fair to give the red deck this much card advantage, but this is the world that we live in, and this World Magic Cup is that much closer to being in Japan's hands because they have managed to put Elias Clocker down to 3 life and a harsh mentor there, meaning that there are still more reasons that Elias Clocker's life total might go down. If he ever activates any ability of artifacts, creatures, or lands that are not mana abilities, well, they're going to cost him a few life.
And it's also another 2-2 on the board. It looks like maybe Elias has drawn another Deathcore Scavenger here. Maybe he can find a way to gain some life back. But it's still going to be very tough. I saw Shota has another Earthshaker Cannon in his hand, and look at the mana he has at his disposal. He can maybe potentially just sacrifice 2 deserts with Ramanap Ruins in 1 turn.
So an attack here from Deathgord Scavenger does generate a little bit of additional life, and then casting another Deathgord Scavenger. Elias Clocker's life total going back up to 7 does not mean to say that he's safe, though. This red deck has just drawn additional cards. It still has those deserts going on. Aethersphere Harvester, the pickup here for Shota Yasuoka on his turn, and I believe that he has enough mana to play out some sort of threat, and Earthshaker Kenra being a good one, and this meaning that he's got a few more attackers, and this forces some blocks from Elias Clocker here.
And now he has to chump block the Earthshaker Kenner token, because otherwise he would go down to 1 life here, and the Ramanap Ruins would finish off the game here. How many lands does Shota have here? No, he's just going to play with the Aethersphere Harvester. Also still has the Scavenger Grounds up and ready to go. Elias Clocker, now's the time to draw a good one, because otherwise Austria out and Japan are through to the semis.
It's taken some good ones already just to keep Austria in it, but there is the handshake. We see in the background there a handshake also from Yu Watanabe to Adrian Johan Schrenk. Those guys did not get to play their final games. Japan stringing it together, getting everything that they needed done. The key linchpin player in that round was the first win that came from Kenta Harada. Didn't get to see too much of that, but then Shota Yasuoka taking it home for Japan. We will see them in the semifinals.
Yeah, very exciting, and what a team. Yuya Watanabe, Shota Yasuoka, and Kenta Harada, the young upstart, just getting, as you said, the big advantage into Japan's court. And of course, Shota was a master as well, and they did really well considering the matchups they had. And I'm just happy to see them progress, because remember, this is their first World Magic Cup top 8.
Well, we have 3 of our 4 semi-finalists figured out. Stay tuned. We'll be back very shortly as we figure out who the 4th will be between Team Italy and Team China.
Hello everyone, Rich, Maria and Simon here with you at the news desk. 3 quarterfinals done, 1 still to come. But if you have missed what's happened so far, well, conveniently, we thought we'd tell you. Maria.
All right, let's take a look at the bracket and review the morning so far. All right, so our first quarterfinal was Germany versus Slovakia. Simon, you were in the booth. How did this shake out?
Yeah, this was relatively evenly matched. We had Mark Tobias on the German team and Ivan Floch captaining Slovakia. Ultimately, the aggressive decks of Germany took it down on the sides. Mark Tobias losing with his 4-color control deck, but his teammates backed him up.
So then we had Wales up against Poland. What happened there, Simon?
Well, Poland, I think, was the favorite there with 2 pro players just coming off of Pro Tour Ixalan. And ultimately, it was the Drakehaven cycling deck that took down the blue-black control deck of Wales.
All right, and then, of course, we just got done seeing Japan versus Austria. What were your thoughts on this matchup?
Well, I talked to the Austrians, and they were optimistic going into the round, but they also knew what they were up against. Probably the strongest team, the strongest squad, at least today, maybe in the whole tournament. And we saw some beautiful Magic being played. I mean, Shota Yasuoka playing mono-red like a control deck.
Yeah, that was so cool to see because Shota's known kind of as a control master.
Yeah, some of you probably shouldn't try that way of playing at home. That's the juggling hand grenades version of Magic. That Ramanat Red, that's not usually how you see it play out. That was epic stuff. Japan advance. We need a semi-final opponent for them. So let's get to the 4th quarterfinal. This is Italy against China.
All right, Italy, let's take a look. There they are on your screen. Captain Andrea Mengucci, Adriano Moscato, and Mattia Rizzi. 2 Pro Tour top 8 among them, as well as 4 Grand Prix top 8s. Let's take a look at what decks they decided to bring here in Team Unified Standard. Mattia Rizzi in Seat A playing blue-black control. Andrea Mengucci has on a green-blue pummeler, which is the only deck of its kind here at the tournament. And then we have Adriano Moscato running Ramunap Red. But let's take a look at the deck that we just saw, green-blue pummeler. Simon, why this deck? Why this tournament? What's up?
I think it's a really smart choice for this exact tournament because your matchup against Timor Energy and Sultai Energy variants is actually quite good. You are playing a very similar style of deck. A lot of the cards have overlap with each other, but then you are threatening this 1-turn kill backed up by cheap protective spells like Blossoming Defense and Dive Down, which just matches up really nicely if your opponents are trying to harness Lightning or even Vraska's Contempt your Electrostatic Pummeler.
Well, talking of opponents, who's in the way of Italy? It's Team China. They're in their first day 2 yesterday, now their first day 3 in the top 8. Liu Yuchen, Lu Chao and Gao Tan are your squad. 5 Grand Prix top 8s to their name. The 3 decks that they're battling with, you're going to see Liu Yuchen with Ramanat Red. Lu Chao has Sultai Energy, so of course you're going to see the Scarab God lurking in there. And Gao Tan is playing White-Blue Gift. Simon, a bit more on Sultai Energy, if you would.
Yes, so the Sultai Energy deck we've seen basically come out of a metagame where Timor Energy was the default for energy strategies, but people have realized that you can play a really nice value game with Glinstave Siphoner, and what really makes this deck tick is Winding Constrictor. It doubles, it doesn't double, but it adds an additional counter whenever a creature gets a +1/+1 counter, and it also has the same synergy with energy counters.
All right, matchup time then. Let's show you who's going to be seated where and what we're facing. Maria.
All right, in Seat A, Mattia Rizzi playing blue-black control versus Liu Yuchen on Ramunap Red. Andrea Mengucci there in Seat B, piloting that green-blue pummeler deck that we just heard about versus Lu Chao on Sultai Energy. And in Seat C, Adriano Moscato piloting Ramunap Red, trying to get in fast and hard under Seat C's Gao Tan's white-blue God Pharaoh's Gift.
So we'd like to see green-blue pummeler doing its thing. Are we going to have that opportunity in Seat B, Simon?
I think so, yes. This is not a matchup that's completely one-sided, but I think ultimately if both decks do what they are trying to do, then we will see maybe an attack with a flying 20 or more power pummeler.
Yeah, let's see it.
Let's see it indeed. Germany, Poland and Japan are through. Is it Italy or is it China who joins them in the semi-finals? Let's find out.